We got 4 texts that discuss drunkenness. We have here, it is one who immersed himself in a river, and then there was in front of him another river, and he crossed it. The second water purifies the first water. I'm not an expert in these matters, but from what reading I did do on this, the idea, apparently he picks up some, going through that first river, having some water on him. If he were to touch like fruits or something, it could acquire tuma.
Right.
However, the second water, when he walks into the second river, that cleanses him of that water that would make it susceptible to tuma. Now, it says, if his fellow pushed him in while drunk or his beast pushed him in, so there's not an intentionality of going in. And apparently this is I'm not sure if this is the same river or a different river, but either way, the second water purifies the first water. But if you did it out of playfulness, it comes under the law of if water be put, which basically, one thing I learned, I do not know how this works. All I know is that it doesn't do like in the very first instance. It does not purify from the first water. I do want to point out, this is interesting. When we did this last summer, this was my translation. I looked back at Sepharia and they had a different translation. It wasn't drunkenness. It says, if you go to Sepharia, it says if they were exercising. I'm like, right. I'm like, that's not even, why would you do that? Also, who is exercising and pushing your friends into rivers? And what's more likely? You're exercising or you're drunk and you push your friend into a river. So I just thought that was a strange, like they went out of their way to differently translate that. What I think is the highlight I do want to point out, is there's a lack of intentionality for that particular case. Either his animal pushed him in or his friend while they were drinking or they were drunk pushed him in, which is, there's a lack of intentionality, obviously on the friend or the animal's part. But the other thing is, like, that happens apparently. Like, that is a plausible situation. You're by a river, maybe a sea, and you're drinking, you're drunk, and you got buddies with you.
Or you're exercising.
Yeah.
Is the friend drunk?
Yeah.
Yes.
The friend is drunk.
The drunken friend has pushed him.
Right. But usually it's not like you're just one friend is drunk. Right. So fine. The friend is drunk. This person we don't know is indeterminately. They're like Schrodinger's.
It's not clear.
Right.
The friend is drunk.
Yeah, it's the friend.
Or if
the pushed person is.
The pushed person is drunk.
I mean, you could be susceptible to being pushed in if you're drunk, but likely the pushing person is the drunk person.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what makes the most sense. That the person who's pushing is drunk, or the animal is pushing you. Right. One of the two things are pushing you.
So the second one, this is a fun one. So if they poured a cup of wine to someone, he said, "I'm now a Nazir from this." Okay, great. He's a Nazir. Someone's poured someone a glass of wine, and he's offered this glass of wine. He says, "No, I'm a Nazir from this." He's now fully a Nazir for all the things that a Nazir is now supposed to do.
Even if you just wanted to say, I don't want another cup of wine, it's my excuse.
Right. And that includes the haircutting, that includes not being near corpses. That now triggers for him this is the rabbi setting up this sort of blanket situation that you could be at a party, offered a glass of wine as it happens. He said, "I'm now a Nazir. Too bad." Now, there is a story now. We now have a story in the Mishnah of a woman. This was now a woman. She's offered a glass of wine, but she's already drunk. She's at this party. She says, you know what? I'm a Nazaretess from this. Which is kind of strange because she clearly has been drinking. She is already drunk. She is gone. She's like, no, I can't. I'm now Nazaretess, right? I'm Nazira. So what do they do with this? So the sages said,
I mean, if they were having frat parties, I totally understand why she could have been in this situation. Like, a lot of peer pressure to drink more, and then so she's like, they'll respect the halacha, I'll tell them I'm
right. So one of the things that happens throughout Mishnah Nazir, I'll just give you some more context, is even like, it's almost like you have these code words or these trigger words, like even a brief statement acknowledging that I want to now trigger or become a Nazir, boom, you're in. Like that's you don't have to have a full complex declaration. You say, I want to be a Nazir. Boom, you're in. Like it's started. So here, that's why for this first guy, they're like, oh, you're now a Nazir. Like that's all you needed. But for her, and she was already drunk. I think it'd be one thing if someone was not drunk. Something that we're going to get into in the Tosefta, we're going to see about what type of state of mind you're in when you're drunk and how much can things really take hold. But for here, they're like, this seems kind of strange. I think anybody hearing about the story of this drunk woman saying, I'm a Nazaretess, I'm a Nazirah, well, why now, right? So the sages said, and they clearly did not want to trigger for her an entire 30 days of Nizirut. They say, no, she only meant to say this as far as bringing an offering. So she would bring the offering like a Nazir or Nazirah in her case, but not that it actually triggers a full 30-day period of her being a Nazirah. One of the things that I find really fascinating about this story is that we have, like, women can be drunk. The sages are aware of women being drunk, and it also doesn't trigger actually what she's declaring to be that she's a Nazirah. I do want to point out, drunk lady, so it's not just men who are drunk. She's at a party. The sages were aware that maybe not to actually place upon her full.
Was the man drunk? It didn't say he was drunk.
No, for the first instance, for that general principle thing, it doesn't mean. But for here, it's like, well, you can be drunk. So the third Mishnah here is this Mishnah Truma 1:6. 5 may not give Truma, but if they do, then it counts, which is interesting. It's not saying it's off the table. It's Truma is you give portions to the Kohen, and so you have to take some of your agricultural produce and set it aside. Now, you have to have some sense of what you're doing, right? You have to know, you have to be able to calculate and know what's where, what's what, and what's where, right? So the 5 are a mute person, and the sages aren't typically that keen on mutes in the first place. I guess someone who just doesn't speak. The second one is a drunk person. Third one is one who is naked. Fourth one is a blind person. I guess it's probably doable, but it'd be hard. And similarly to a mute person, they can't speak. And back in their days, they were a highly oral culture, and that's how a lot of transmission was done, not as visual and textually oriented as we are today. The blind person, and then one who has had a seminal emission, and that's probably due to impurity. But again, just as we started off with Mishnah, the Mishnah concludes just to remind us they should not do it. They just should not do it. But if they did, it counts. It's fine. That's okay. Does not say for our purposes why a drunk person, although I could imagine they probably don't have the best sense of calculations or what goes where. I think the takeaway for the drunk person is they can't really figure out what the right amount is. But it's probably close enough. That's why it probably counts anyways after the fact. It's probably close enough. The key takeaway for us from this text is the drunk person does not have the best sense of calculation ability. Should not shock us.
I have a totally different takeaway.
Oh wait, what was your take?
The Mishnah includes all of these places that drunk people are a thing.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely.
This is normal happenstance.
Right. That's what people. I'm doing truma. What are you doing, honey? I'm taking truma.
People is like a thing.
Yeah.
This is normal.
Yeah, absolutely. We still got one more text. Our fourth and final Mishnah throughout the entirety of the Mishnah that mentions drunk people is this here in Bechorot 7:6. I'm not reading this entire thing, but we're going to skip. I don't know, 70 to 80% down here, which is concerning the Kushi, the Gichor, the Lavkan, the Kipeach, which are untranslated here, the dwarf, the deaf, mute, the imbecile, one who is drunk, and those with ritually pure marks disqualify a person from performing the temple service and are valid. However, these all 9 of these things, however, are valid for an animal to be sacrificed. So the sacrificer, these 9 things are problematic and psulim ba'adam. They're psul. They negate their ability to perform the service. So you can but it's fine for animals.
A drunk goat.
That's right.
No.
So, yes,
Seriously?
that's what it says. So drunkenness here is for humans. So 4 texts we've seen that women are drunk in the Mishnah, and that animals can be drunk, and fun fact, can be sacrificed in the temple.
No way.
Yes.
How did they get drunk?
People feed their dogs beer.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. My neighbor's done it, but yeah, it happens.
I never did.
I know it's like a party pooper thing to say, but it is a whole list.
Really?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that like this list.
It's a possible. I don't know. Like, I don't know how
That's
people.
like evidence that animals got drunk, because there are other things on the list.
Animals definitely do get drunk.
Okay.
That is absolutely a thing. I don't know how common it is. Yeah, it is absolutely possible. I don't know if people are intentionally. Also, if you have an animal that wanders over, maybe there's just some wine thing. I don't know,
Actually, maybe they're
and they lap it up.
eating them
Yeah,
leftover. What is it when you make beer?
the mash.
Yeah.
The map
Yeah.
from bourbon also.
Yeah.
No, but by the way,
Yeah.
all of these are
Yeah.
interesting things because again,
Yeah.
they wouldn't list it unless they were like.
They weren't things,
One
right?
of them is, by the way, people who have 6 digits on each hand.
Yeah. So it's okay for an
Right?
animal.
So in other words, but my point is that he's existing.
So as we think about all 4 of these texts, as all 4 instances of drunkenness in the Mishnah, clearly one thing I think we get out of it is that it happens, right? Whether you're by a river with buddies and someone pushes someone in, because that's probably more likely to happen while intoxicated than sober. And the second instance is this lady being drunk at a party. Drunkenness happens, and it's not only men, it's women. It happens. The third thing we've seen is you shouldn't do it you shouldn't be separating truma under the influence, but if you did, it's probably close enough. It's probably fine. And this fourth and final one, which is people while probably kohanim in doing the avodah should not be drunk, but drunk animals are allowed to be offered in the temple.